The air was thick and wet as Ethan stepped out of his small landing craft. The alien jungle spread out like an endless sea of green and glowing blue, trees twisted high into the sky, their leaves shining with strange light, the sound of dripping. Water mixed with the distant calls of unknown creatures. Ethan tightened the strap on his plasma blade and checked his scanner. He was here for one thing, a rare plant used in medicine. A flower that only grew on this planet deep inside the jungle. But something felt wrong. The forest was too quiet, like it was holding its breath. As he pushed through the thick vines, he noticed the ground pulsing slightly under his boots, almost like it was alive. He shook his head and kept moving. The mist around him made everything look like a dream or a nightmare. Then he heard it. A sound that made his blood freeze. It was not an animal cry, it sounded human. A desperate scream carried through the fog, high-pitched and full of fear. Ethan's heart raced. He wasn't supposed to find anyone here. This planet was marked uninhabited. He moved quickly, ducking under branches and stepping over glowing roots. The sound grew louder. His breath caught as he broke through a curtain of vines and saw something that made him stop in shock. A girl, but not human. Her skin was soft blue, glowing faintly like moonlight. Her silver white hair stuck to her face as she ran through the jungle. She looked terrified. Behind her, the ground shifted, and a massive plant rose from the earth, like a monster waking up. It wasn't just a plant. It moved like an animal. Its thick vines whipped through the air. Its huge mouth opened in the center of a flower-like head lined with sharp, wet tendrils. Ethan's eyes widened as one vine shot out, wrapping around the girl's waist. She screamed as the plant pulled her in. The vines dragged her toward the gaping maw. Her hands clawed at the ground, leaving trails in the glowing soil. Ethan didn't think. His body moved on instinct. He charged forward, pulling out his plasma blade. "Hold on," he shouted, though he knew she couldn't understand him. The vines snapped around her legs, lifting her into the air. The plant's mouth opened wider, dripping with thick, clear sap. Ethan swung his blade and cut through one of the vines. The plant recoiled, but it was too late. With a horrifying sound, the creature swallowed her whole. The jungle went silent again. Ethan stood frozen, breathing hard. His eyes stared at the writhing plant. He could still hear faint muffled screams from inside. He had seconds to act. His heart pounded in his ears. He gritted his teeth and ran at the plant. Slashing at the vines, the creature reacted violently, whipping its tendrils around him. One caught his arm, yanking him back. He stumbled but held his blade tight. "I'm not letting you take her," he yelled. His voice echoed in the mist. He sliced the vine and rolled forward. The plant's body pulsed, trying to drag him in too. He could see the shape of the girl moving inside the translucent skin of the creature. With a roar, Ethan drove his blade into the plant's core. The smell of burning sap filled the air. The creature screeched, a sound that shook the trees. Ethan slashed again and again until the plant split open. A rush of sticky liquid poured out, and the alien girl fell into his arms. She was shaking, gasping for air. Her glowing eyes met his, full of shock and fear. Ethan held her up, breathing hard. Both of them stared at each other, neither saying a word. The jungle was silent once more, but this time, it felt like it was watching. The ground under his boots shifted slightly, and Ethan realized with a chill that the danger wasn't over. The whole forest was alive, and it knew they were here. Ethan's arms trembled as he held the alien girl. Her body was covered in sticky sap, and her breathing came in sharp, desperate gasps. He could feel her heartbeat pounding against his chest. For a second, he almost relaxed. She was alive. He had saved her. But then the ground beneath his boots shifted again, and the sound returned. A low, wet rumble that came from everywhere at once. The jungle itself was moving, the girl's glowing. Silver eyes widened. She grabbed Ethan's arm with surprising strength and pointed to the shadows behind him. Ethan turned, his breath catching in his throat. The same type of plant that had swallowed her was rising from the ground again. But this one was bigger, its vines stretched like hundreds of snakes. "Great," Ethan muttered under his breath. He pulled the girl to her feet. "We need to move," he shouted, though he knew she couldn't understand. She didn't need to. Her own instincts kicked in. And they ran. The jungle came alive around them. Vines whipped through the air. Slamming into trees and snapping branches, the mist swirled, glowing in the alien light as the ground seemed to pulse with every step. Ethan slashed at a vine that darted for his leg. The creature screeched, and another vine shot from the side, wrapping around the girl's arm. She cried out, trying to pull free. Ethan spun and sliced the vine. The sap sprayed across his visor, blurring his vision. He grabbed her hand and yanked her forward. Their boots splashed through shallow pools of glowing water as they pushed through the dense foliage. "Come on! Come on!" he urged. His voice echoed, sounding small against the jungle's living roar. The girl stumbled, her legs still weak from being trapped inside the plant. Ethan scooped her up without stopping, her light frame clinging to his armor. As they moved, suddenly, the ground ahead of them split open. A massive root, as thick as a tree trunk, rose from the earth, blocking their path. Ethan skidded to a halt. His eyes darted around, searching for a way out. The girl tapped his chest and pointed sharply to the left. Ethan followed her gesture and saw a narrow path hidden behind a wall of vines. He slashed through them with his blade and darted inside. The sound of the pursuing plant echoed behind them. Every step made the jungle feel tighter, like the trees themselves were closing in to trap them. After what felt like an eternity, they burst into a small clearing. The girl wriggled out of his arms. Standing on her own now, she pressed a hand to her chest and began drawing strange symbols in the glowing soil with her finger. Ethan watched, breathing hard, still gripping his blade. "What are you trying to say?" he asked softly. The girl drew a rough shape of the jungle. Then she tapped the center and made a twisting motion with her hand. Her silver eyes met his, and she spoke one soft word in a language he didn't understand. But her tone carried weight. The ground rumbled again, louder this time. Ethan glanced at the jungle around them, the glowing plants pulsing like they had a heartbeat. He realized something that made his stomach turn. The plant that attacked her wasn't a single creature. It was part of the whole forest. The girl stepped close and grabbed his wrist. Her touch was cold, but firm. She pointed to the misty path ahead and gave him a look that said one thing without words. "Run." Ethan nodded, tightening his grip on the blade. "All right, let's get out of this nightmare," he muttered. They ran together, their shadows stretching in the eerie blue light as the jungle's hungry roar followed close behind. The clearing was silent except for their heavy breathing. Ethan leaned against a glowing tree, sweat running down his face under the helmet. The alien girl stood a few steps away, her chest rising and falling as she tried to calm herself. For the first time since saving her, Ethan got a good look at her. Her blue skin shimmered under the dim light, almost like it was made of liquid crystal. Thin lines glowed faintly across her arms and neck, forming patterns that looked alive. Her silver eyes watched him closely, not with fear anymore, but with something else, caution. "Okay," Ethan said quietly, holding his hands out to show he meant no harm. "You understand me?" "No hurt." She tilted her head, not answering. Instead, she crouched and started drawing in the glowing soil again. Ethan knelt beside her, watching as her delicate fingers moved quickly. She drew the jungle again, its twisted trees and pulsing vines. Then she pointed to herself, tapped her chest twice, and drew a symbol like a circle with 3 lines. "Lyra," Ethan guessed, pointing at her chest. Her eyes lit up slightly. She nodded once. "Lyra," she said softly. Her voice was light and strange, the syllables rolling like a song. Ethan smiled slightly and tapped his own chest. "Ethan," she repeated the name slowly. "A fan." Her accent stretched the word into something almost beautiful. For a brief second, the danger faded, replaced by the simple fact that they were 2 strangers forced together in a deadly place. But the ground quickly reminded him where they were. A low vibration pulsed beneath his boots. Stronger than before, Lyra's expression hardened. She stood quickly and pointed into the distance, where the mist was shifting unnaturally. Shapes moved inside the fog, not one but many. Ethan gripped his plasma blade, his instincts screaming at him to move. More of them, he muttered. Lyra stepped closer, grabbing his arm. Her glowing lines brightened as if reacting to the threat. She pointed at his weapon, then at herself, and mimed fighting. "You want to help?" Ethan asked. Her silver eyes met his, calm but fierce. She nodded once. There was no fear in her now, only determination. Before Ethan could say anything else, the jungle attacked. Vines shot from the ground like spears, smashing into the glowing trees around them. The mist split apart as several massive plants emerged, their flower-like maws opening with a wet, chilling sound. Ethan and Lyra moved at the same time. He swung his blade in a wide arc, slicing through the nearest vine. Lyra raised her hands, and the glowing lines on her body flared bright. A pulse of energy shot out, knocking two of the vines back. Ethan's eyes widened as he saw her power. "You're full of surprises," he said under his breath. She didn't respond, too focused on the fight. Together, they moved in perfect sync, cutting, dodging, and pushing back the living jungle. But for every vine they cut, two more rose from the ground. The plants weren't just attacking, they were surrounding them. The mist thickened until Ethan could barely see. Lyra grabbed his wrist again and pulled him hard toward a narrow gap between two glowing roots. They stumbled into a hidden path, the jungle closing behind them like a door. Ethan looked back, breathing hard. The clearing they had just fought in was already gone, swallowed by the living forest. Lyra leaned against the wall of glowing vines, her body trembling slightly. Ethan crouched beside her, his voice low. "What is this place? Why are you here?" Lyra's silver eyes met his, and for the first time, she spoke in broken human words. Her voice was soft, almost like a whisper. "Jungle. Alive. Hunting us." Ethan froze. Her words were enough to confirm what he had already feared. This wasn't just a forest full of monsters. The entire jungle was one living thing, and now it wanted them both. The air inside the hidden path was heavy and damp. Ethan could hear his own heartbeat echoing in his helmet. Lyra's silver eyes scanned the glowing walls as if the jungle itself could hear them breathing. For a moment, they just stood there in silence. Then the ground under their feet gave a sharp pulse. Not a soft vibration this time, but a deep, powerful thump like a heartbeat. Ethan's breath caught. "It knows where we are," he whispered. Lyra stepped closer and pressed her hand against the wall of vines. The glowing lines on her skin flickered as if talking to the jungle. She turned to him and said in her broken human words, "No run." "It chase," Ethan frowned. "We can't just stay here." The walls around them shifted as if answering him. A low cracking sound echoed through the path. The glowing vines twisted and started to close in. "Guess we're running anyway," he muttered. He grabbed Lyra's hand, and they bolted down the narrow tunnel. The sound of ripping roots followed behind them. The path split into two ahead. Lyra didn't hesitate. She yanked him toward the left side. The moment they turned, the right tunnel collapsed completely, swallowed by writhing vines. The jungle wasn't just hunting them, it was guiding them, like a predator herding prey. Ethan's stomach twisted. At the realization, they burst out of the narrow path into a massive open section of the jungle. The trees here were towering, their glowing leaves casting strange shadows. In the center of the clearing, the ground was covered in pools of shimmering blue water. Lyra stopped suddenly, pulling Ethan back. Her silver eyes widened with fear. The water wasn't water. The surface rippled, and a massive vine-like tendril rose from the pool, dripping thick sap. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," Ethan muttered. He pulled out his plasma blade just as the pool exploded. Several massive vines shot into the air, twisting like snakes. The ground beneath them lurched violently. Ethan lost his balance and hit the glowing soil hard. Lyra screamed as a vine wrapped around her ankle and yanked her into the air. Not again! Ethan shouted, rolling to his feet. He leapt forward and slashed the vine just before it could drag her into the pool. The plant screeched, the sound vibrating through the trees. The jungle responded instantly. Every tree around the clearing shook. Roots breaking through the ground like giant claws, Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her to her feet. "We can't fight this. We need to move," he said through gritted teeth. She nodded quickly, and they sprinted across the clearing as vines slammed into the ground around them. One missed Ethan by inches, splashing glowing sap across his armor. They darted between massive roots, the jungle roaring behind them. The sound was deafening now, like the entire forest was alive and furious. Suddenly, Lyra stopped, yanking Ethan to the side. He almost stumbled but followed her lead as she pushed through a curtain of glowing moss. Behind, it was a narrow crack in the ground leading into darkness. "You want to go down there?" Ethan asked, staring into the hole. Lyra's silver eyes locked on his. "Hide," she said softly. Then she jumped first, disappearing into the shadows. Ethan hesitated only a second before following her. The moment they dropped inside, the opening above them sealed shut with twisting vines. The roar of the jungle went silent, leaving only the sound of their ragged breathing in the dark. Ethan's visor adjusted to the low light, revealing a long underground tunnel lined with glowing roots. He looked at Lyra, who was crouched on the ground listening. Her glowing lines pulsed softly. "Is it gone?" he asked in a whisper. Lyra slowly shook her head. Her voice was almost too soft to hear. "No." Wait. Ethan felt a cold chill run through him. They weren't safe. Not even here. The jungle wasn't just chasing them. It was playing with them. The underground tunnel was silent except for the faint hum of glowing roots. Ethan's breathing was steady now, but his grip on the plasma blade had not relaxed. Lyra knelt on the soft soil. Her glowing silver eyes closed as if listening to something Ethan couldn't hear. For the first time since they met, she spoke without hesitation. "It not forest." Her voice was quiet but carried a weight that made Ethan's skin crawl. He stepped closer, kneeling beside her. "What do you mean?" he whispered. Lyra opened her eyes and tapped the ground. "All one. One mind." She traced a circle in the soil, then drew vines reaching everywhere. "It feel us. Everywhere." Ethan's stomach tightened. The thought that this entire jungle was a single living creature made his pulse quicken. "So it's not just hunting us," he said under his breath. "We're inside it." Lyra nodded slowly. Her glowing lines dimmed for a moment, then flared again as she spoke. "It feed. Life. Energy." Her broken words struggled, but Ethan understood enough. This thing didn't just kill, it absorbed life. Ethan ran a hand over his helmet, thinking fast. There has to be a way to stop it. He looked at Lyra. You know how, don't you?" She hesitated, her fingers curling into the soil. Finally, she whispered, "Heart." She tapped the ground again, this time drawing a small glowing circle deep inside the bigger one. "Destroy. Heart, all die." Ethan stared at the drawing. The heart was likely the center of the jungle, a core, maybe a brain. "If we kill that, the rest dies," he said, mostly to himself. Lyra's silver eyes met his, and she nodded once. Before he could respond, the ground beneath them gave another deep, heavy pulse, much stronger than before. The walls around them trembled, roots began to shift like living snakes, closing in on the tunnel. Ethan grabbed Lyra's arm. "We can't stay here." They ran deeper into the tunnel, the walls moving behind them like a closing throat. The glow of the roots flickered, and the air became thick and hot as they moved. Ethan noticed something strange. The tunnel wasn't random, it was guiding them, twisting and turning with purpose. "It knows where we're going," he muttered. Lyra's hand tightened around his wrist. She looked at him with an expression he hadn't seen before, fear mixed with resolve. "It know. But want us," she whispered. Ethan stopped for half a second. "It wants us?" he repeated. Then the ground beneath them gave way, and they slid down into a vast cavern, landing hard on glowing soil. Ethan groaned, pushing himself up. His eyes widened as he looked around. The cavern wasn't just big, it was alive, massive. Roots pulsed along the walls like veins, and in the center was a gigantic glowing mass, beating slowly like a heart. Lyra stood beside him, her silver eyes locked on the glowing core. Her voice was barely a breath. "Heart," Ethan tightened his grip on the plasma blade. "Guess we found it." He glanced at her. "You said destroy the heart, and it all dies, right?" Lyra nodded but didn't move closer. Instead, she put her hand on her chest and said softly, "Heart fight. Heart protect." As if her words triggered it, the massive root walls began to shift. The ground shook violently, and several enormous vine creatures rose from the soil, their glowing maws opening with a hiss. Ethan stepped in front of her, his blade humming. "Looks like it's not going to make this easy," he muttered. Lyra's glowing lines flared brighter than ever. Before, she stepped beside him, her soft voice steady now. "Together." Ethan smirked under his helmet. "Yeah, together," he said. The jungle roared as the first vine lunged, and they charged into the fight. Asterisk, the cavern shook like a living beast as the first massive vine slammed into the ground. Ethan jumped back, his plasma blade cutting through the air with a sharp hum. Lyra raised her glowing hands, a wave of energy blasting one of the creatures back. But for every vine they struck, more rose from the soil. The heart of the jungle pulsed faster, its glowing mass beating like a war drum. Ethan could feel the vibration deep in his bones. "This thing isn't letting us near it." He shouted over the roar. Lyra's silver eyes darted to the heart, then back to him. Her voice was sharp but soft. "Need close." "Destroy core." Ethan slashed through another vine, sweat dripping down his face under the helmet. "Yeah, easier said than done," he yelled. The cavern walls shifted, roots wrapping around them like a cage. Lyra suddenly grabbed his wrist. Her glowing lines pulsed wildly. "Human." "You power," she said in broken words. Ethan frowned. "My power? What are you talking about?" She tapped his chest, right where his armor's energy core sat. "Strong. Heart weak. Need your fire." Her silver eyes were intense. "You give all." Ethan froze. Her words hit him hard. "You're saying I have to overload the core," he whispered. Lyra nodded once. "Heart die. Jungle die." He looked back at the massive glowing core in the center of the cavern. The vines writhed like angry serpents. He knew what overloading his suit's core meant. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a death sentence. Ethan let out a shaky laugh. "Great. Save the day and blow myself up. Just another Tuesday." He glanced at Lyra. "You better make it out of here alive." Lyra stepped closer, her hand resting gently on his chest plate. Her silver eyes softened. "Human. Brave," she whispered. The vine surged forward again, giving them no time. Ethan gritted his teeth and nodded. "All right, let's finish this." He charged forward, cutting through the writhing roots. Lyra followed close, her energy blasts carving a path. The jungle screamed, a sound so loud it felt like the air itself was ripping apart. They reached the glowing heart, its surface pulsing with blinding light. Ethan planted his hand on the core of his suit, fingers shaking. He initiated the overload sequence, a warning flashing across his visor. 30 seconds. The eye in his helmet said in a calm voice. Ethan chuckled bitterly. "Yeah, plenty of time." Lyra placed her hands on the jungle's heart, her glowing lines merging with the pulsing veins. "I hold. You go," she whispered. Ethan's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" "No, we do this together." Lyra shook her head slowly. "Heart strong, need 2 life. 2 fire." Her soft voice broke slightly. "You stay. Jungle live." Realization hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. She wasn't planning on escaping either. His chest tightened. "No. We'll find another way," he said. But even as the words left his mouth, He knew there wasn't one. Lyra smiled faintly, her silver eyes glowing bright. Human. Save world. The vines lunged, wrapping around them both. Ethan roared and drove his blade into the core. The overload countdown flashed in his visor. 10 seconds. The jungle screamed louder, the heart pulsing wildly as if in panic. Lyra's voice was soft but steady. Together. Ethan looked at her one last time. Her glowing face inches from his. He nodded slowly. Together, he whispered. The jungle's roar was deafening. The cavern shook as if the planet itself was screaming. Ethan's visor flashed warnings, the overload sequence ticking down. 5 seconds, the ice calm voice said. But the moment felt anything but calm. Lyra's hands pressed deeper into the glowing heart, her silver eyes locking with Ethan's. The glowing lines on her body burned like fire. She whispered softly, "Hold. Trust." Ethan's breath hitched. He could feel the energy building in his suit, heat searing his skin under the armor. He tightened his grip on the plasma blade and nodded. Together, he said again, his voice rough, the vines wrapped around them, trying to pull them away from the core. Ethan roared and drove the blade deeper into the pulsing heart. Lyra's body flared with blinding light, merging with the jungle's core. 3 seconds. The jungle's scream turned into a long guttural cry. Roots collapsed from the ceiling, and the ground split open. Ethan could see flashes of the forest above, as if the entire planet was tearing apart. Lyra's voice broke through the chaos. Soft but steady, human. Live. Ethan shook his head. No, we both live. He shouted, but her silver eyes told him the truth. She was giving everything she had to hold the core in place, to make the overload destroy it completely. 2 seconds. The heart pulsed violently. The light almost blinding now. Ethan reached out and grabbed Lyra's hand, squeezing tight. Her fingers curled weakly around his. She smiled faintly. Thank you. 1 second. The world turned white. A wave of energy exploded from the heart, tearing through the cavern, ripping through every root and vine. For a brief second, there was no sound, no jungle, no fear, just light and silence. Ethan gasped as his visor flickered back online. He was lying on the ground, the glowing soil now dim and lifeless. The massive cavern was collapsing slowly, but the roar of the jungle was gone. He pushed himself up, his body aching. Lyra, he whispered. His eyes scanned the smoke and broken roots. His chest tightened when he saw her lying a few feet away. Her glowing lines were faint now, her silver eyes half open. He stumbled toward her, dropping to his knees beside her. Hey, stay with me, he said, his voice breaking. She looked at him and smiled weakly. Heart gone. Jungle. Die. Ethan nodded, fighting the lump in his throat. Yeah, you did it. We did it. Her hand reached up, touching his faceplate softly. Human. Brave, she whispered again. Her voice was so light now, barely there. No, don't you fade on me, Ethan said, gripping her hand. You're going to make it, you hear me? We're getting out of here together. Her silver eyes closed slowly, and for a terrifying second, he thought she was gone, but then she whispered one last word. Soft as a breath. Together. The ceiling cracked, and a beam of light cut through the smoke above. Ethan looked up, his jaw tightening. He slid his arms under Lyra and stood, carrying her toward the light, as they emerged into the open air. The once living jungle was silent and still. Trees stood like empty shells, the glowing leaves now pale and lifeless. The planet itself felt quiet. Ethan looked down at the girl in his arms, her faint glow still pulsing softly. Yeah, he whispered with a tired smile. Together.